What's going on, man? We're back with I'm Just Said Tennessee podcast. I'm Jeremiah again.
And Gabe.
I said new episode. We getting ready. It's March, baby. It's March. It's March. It's March. New scenery for the both of us. I'm in the living room. Gabe is back home in Texas.
Yep.
How you feeling, Gabe?
Feeling good, feeling nice here with some family, enjoying my spring break before we get into the thick of NCAA. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your semester holding out?
I'm glad grades are looking good right now. I'm just glad it's spring break. Need a good break, not having to look at my computer or do anything, but just watch basketball.
Well,
Too many.
if you're working right now, if you're working over the next couple of days, like what are you doing? It's
Yeah,
basketball time. Is
yeah,
the
it's basketball time.
got my bracket filled out. I've entered a little challenge with my friends. Got a little money. Got a little pot going. Maybe try to earn some money.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it tomorrow. I got to get in there tomorrow, but.
Yeah, mine's in. They know that I'm coming to take their money. I watch more college basketball than all of them combined. And then I always do well every year, and then every year they complain because I watch more basketball. But
Yeah.
here we are, just ready to take money again. But I'm not gonna lie. Last year, felt pretty great about my bracket, and for the most part, I was good because last year I felt like it was a little more clear cut. It's a little side tangent, but last year I felt like it was a little more clear cut. Like I was like, oh, UConn's going all the way. You know, this team is not.
Or
You know, a lot of the teams I thought did well would do well. There's a few, like obviously you can't predict like Kentucky, whatever. But Queens was it who or no? Who beat Kentucky? Whatever.
it was
But
15. Was it a 15
it
or
was the
like
15th seed. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
so you can't predict those, but there was some. But for the most part, they did good. This year, I'm not as confident. I feel like this tournament could go a lot of different ways.
a lot of hot teams coming
A lot
in
of
winning.
hot teams, a lot of
Yeah,
teams that maybe peaked earlier, but like, well, they still have the talent. I'm talking maybe your Mississippi States,
but
you
like
know,
a North Carolina too. Like
North
North.
Carolina. They're dominating right now. I left to that I was hopping on this because that game just got way too out of hand.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then there's even we sneak peek for a later conversation. Maybe Auburn not really peaking right now, losing three of their last four, but they
then
could
Duke
easily
winning,
come in. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest though if they came in and would won the whole thing largely untouched. Uh,
then Florida getting hot at the end, facing three top five teams in the country and SEC. Then you got Duke winning the ACC tournament without Cooper Flag. So it's a
Interesting.
lot of basketball to be played in March for sure.
Yes, sir. But I was at the SEC tournament. I was there on site. I was doing some work. I was doing some coverage for us and then some other, little UT athletics stuff. What was your thoughts of the tournament and Tennessee's performance?
Um, well, the first thing Tennessee can play basketball with any team in the country. I feel like they proved that whether it's the offense that keeps them in it or if it's the defense, Tennessee can keep and arguably be the better team on the floor. Like that Auburn game, Tennessee was the better team on the floor for a majority of that game. Starting out hot, coming out in a game that didn't seem like, of course, it ended up slowing down like that original game did, towards the back end after the first 10 minutes. But those first 10 minutes, Tennessee looked like one of the best offenses in the country. Chaz Lanier was hot, he was finding other ways to score the ball than just shooting from the perimeter. The offense just looked amazing. So just seeing Tennessee can hang in any way with any team in the country, but also my biggest takeaway is that foul trouble will be the downfall of Tennessee. For the simple fact that there are only 7 or 8, I'm pretty sure there are 7 or 8 scholarship players available, but Bishop Boswell doesn't get much play time. D Stone is still limited, even though he's starting to play that 4 role when Igor is in foul trouble or Cade is in foul trouble, and they can only rely on Akpara. But foul trouble would definitely be the biggest thing for Tennessee because Zakiv has been having to sit 6 to 7 minute stints. Jamai Meshack and Chaz fouled out the other day. Felix Akpar, Cade Phillips, Igor, they all get in foul trouble. So it's like Rick Barnes can't let any of them catch any rhythm or any flow of the game because he has to take them out every 2 to 3 minutes because they're fouling and picking up two quick fouls. So and then the second takeaway is just like the bigs. The bigs are going to be, depending on the way Akpara, Phillips, and Igor play, is going to be what makes Tennessee beat the teams they beat in the tournament. For example, they played a hell of a game against Auburn. They matched the physicality. Even though Janot Broome, He was unanimous all American first team. He was named that today. Even though Janai Broome did have a great, I think he had like 28-10 around that. Even though
Mhm.
he did have a great game, like Carwell and the other big that Auburn has on the bench didn't really have a great day because Igor was banging with him, Cade was banging with him, Felix was banging with him. But you could definitely tell that those Florida bigs like Condon, Chinyelu, that like they definitely had it was an aura difference between them. Like, oh, they're a step better than Par and the Milicic Jr. tandem, Condon and Chinyelu, whatever. I'm Chin. I don't know. I hope I'm not pronouncing his name wrong, but I'm sure it's either Chinyelu or Chinyule. Like, let me see. But yeah, regardless, you could just tell that they were definitely the better front court tandem, and that's going to be a problem for Tennessee. What about you? What did you think?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple takeaways. I'll answer some of the points you, but my takeaway is the same as yours. I remember sitting out after that Tennessee Auburn game, and obviously there's some foul trouble there, some foul trouble in the Texas game, and I remember I remember going in the locker room after the Texas game, and Felix being really upset. Like we, media goes and they get an opportunity to talk to everybody. And he was looking at his shoes. He was just not happy. And then I asked him, I said, what's up? But y'all won the game. It seemed like you're very pleased. And he's like, can't I got some fouls early. I couldn't stay on the floor. He admitted some of them he didn't really understand. He had to go to the refs and maybe talk to them about it. Others he did understand and was maybe just disappointed in himself. But I remember him being disappointed that he wasn't able to stay on the floor for the whole game. And then similar with Auburn, right? And so uh at the end of that Auburn game, I went back out to watch the Florida Alabama game. It was not interesting. Florida kind of crushed them, but I remember seeing the way that Florida switched and seeing the way that they spread out, and I remember thinking like, all that's fouls. That backdoor cut that they just had, that's a foul. Like against Tennessee, I was like, they're crashing out, and that's a foul because two guys are gonna crash on them, and they're gonna foul. That high pick and roll, that's a reach in. I was like, everything, like what I mean, like just the way that they would switch and they would do. I was like, that's a foul. They're gonna foul that 3-pointer. That's a foul. You know what I mean? I just went back and I was like, this team is not staying on the court for that, and they did it. It's exactly what I thought would happen, and it's everything you said. And this goes all the way back to the beginning of the season that we talked about of not having two open scholarships and not filling them. Part of that is you can't help that JP Estrella gets a season-ending injury. Um, which sucks for them because that's a big man. That if nothing else, that's a big man with at least 5 extra fouls. And if you were able to fill those two other scholarship positions instead of leaving them open, which ultimately Rick Barnes decided to do, that's 10 more fouls that you can spread out. That they're unable to do, and that's all credit to D Stone, who we've had our ups and downs with. I think most of uh, Tennessee media, most of All Nation have had their ups and downs with. I thought he had a really good tournament. I thought he filled the role. I would even argue so much to say he would have been just not utilized properly in this season. Like I know you get him out of Hofstra and you think he's going to be a shooter and you think he's going to do 50, 40, 90, but I think pretty early on he showed that he just was not going to do that at this level. But a guy of that size, of that frame, and a lot of, honestly, his very underrated defensive tenacity. I think I think he could have been used in the small ball four, which I'd kind of suggested a little bit earlier this season. But I think he could have been used in the small ball four for a while now. There was several times where it kind of just looked like he just was going at Janai Broome. He was targeting him. He's like, no, I want that. To that point, though, this is the second game that Tennessee has played Auburn that they just were like, all right, we're gonna let Janai get his, and then nobody else is gonna get theirs, and we'll just live with that. We'll just let you do, which is, it's an interesting strategy. It doesn't always work, especially when you're playing a guy that's arguably the best, basketball, college basketball player this year. But you're like, oh, we'll let Janai, because they did the same thing where Janai had by far all their points in their best game, and then nobody else, really was able to get it. So that's like the same thing they did. Because, I mean, every time they would get to the low block on Janai's off ball left side, no offense, he was eating Felix's lunch money. That turnaround post up, off the glass every single time.
Over the right shoulder every time.
Mm-hmm. And it was just not like it wasn't even that I'm saying like Felix was playing bad defense. It's just that guy is just so patient and so good. And so he'll wait for and he'll do it, he'll wait for the right moment and then before he ended up scoring. Um, but Tennessee was working with that. They're like, that's fine. But Chad Baker Mazzara will not have a good game today. you can have whatever you want, but Chad Baker Mazara will not have a good game today, and our guards will ensure that. And so as long as we can keep them from doing that, we can limit their threes. Uh, then we'll live with that, and they end up coming out on top. A couple more points to the Auburn game, because I do think that that was the biggest and most important takeaway was that win over Auburn. I think that was so crucial to them and what this team means going forward. Yeah, the fouls are going to be a trouble, and I just don't see a world where they're not going to be a trouble in the tournament. However, I think Tennessee finally proved that they can beat anyone because going in, there was the talks about the 1 seed, and we can talk about what the tournament means and should it reflect your whole season or should it, have no bearing on your seeding in the tournament. But there was a lot of talk about the 1 seed. A lot of people kind of assumed Tennessee was kind of out of it after the Ole Miss game, but then they beat Auburn, right? And I remember thinking like we can maybe open this conversation back up on Tennessee maybe being able to sneak into 1 seed. Like I personally didn't think it should have been over, right? Because the only thing that Tennessee didn't have, like I wrote them off after Florida because I remember thinking that Florida had all the best wins in the country. They had Tennessee, they had Alabama, and they beat Auburn. And I remember thinking there's just no way anybody can catch up with them. Those are the three best wins in the country. Those are three top 6 teams, top 8 teams now. But at the time, those were three top 5 teams. And so I was like, nobody has those wins. Those are the best wins in the country. Forget their quad one record. Even though I was kind of hating on it a little bit. I was like, forget their quad one record. Nobody can touch that. And then Tennessee beats Alabama and then Tennessee beats, and then Tennessee comes in the tournament and they beat Auburn, and I was like, oh, okay, well, now Tennessee has all the best wins, and they beat Auburn, they beat Florida, they blew them out, they beat Alabama. Now Tennessee has every bit of those wins that Florida has, and so I was like, well. Now it should just come down to the final champion. You know what I mean? Like I was like, because at first that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, okay, well, Florida has the best wins. Tennessee can't really compete in that department. You can talk about the losses, but because then you can argue just Tennessee's had a much better quad. If you start arguing about Tennessee's losses compared to Florida losses, I'm like, okay, well, Tennessee had a much harder schedule. So I was going into that final, that championship game, and I was like, Tennessee got the win that they needed because they didn't want to go in the tournament having Duke had beat Auburn, Florida beat Auburn, Texas A&M beat Auburn, Alabama beat Auburn. At the time, the only one of those really competing teams that hadn't beat Auburn was Tennessee and Houston played them in the second game of the season. So I'm not saying it doesn't count. Well, wins are wins, losses are losses, but it's kind of different. Tennessee played them twice, both during conference play, and so I think that was huge because they finally proved that really and truly there is no team that they can't compete with. That's for large. I mean, they're the overall 1 seed, and Tennessee took care of them, and never really. I mean, they had the one moment at the end where Chaz took that really long three after they were up 12, and it just sparked a 10-0 run. But even more impressive that they were able to kind of get themselves back together and get their heads back in the game and come away with that win and crucial free throws from Jeremiah Meshack and everybody else. Um, so that was super important. And then this second one, that is my side tangent. Um, the referees really killed that game. That was just for me personally. I don't mind coming on here, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm a basketball fan. If we're doing this show, it's because we're basketball fans. I know like people like to be objective. Journalists or reporters. I'm a basketball fan. I did not care if I felt like the calls went Tennessee's way or not, or if they went Auburn's way or not. I could care less. Those first 8 minutes before the under 12-minute timeout, media timeout, was absolute bliss. Both teams started off like 5 for 5 and like 3 for 3 from three, and they were just back and forth. It was Tennessee hits a three, Auburn hits a three, Tennessee hits a three. They go up. They were literally scored like the first like 7 or 8 baskets just down. Both went down, and it was the most fun I had watching him. And I was like, this game is going to be the national championship. I literally sat next to some people in the media, and I was like, this is a national championship game. We are about to. I remember being like getting butterflies in my stomach, not because of Tennessee, but because I felt like I was about to witness a historic game. And then the whistles came in and the plays stopped. And part of that was like Auburn like did kind of figure it out where they were like the game was going a little too fast and Tennessee was kind of dictating play a little bit. They were like say maintained like a small steady lead. And then Auburn was like, what if we just drove into the lane and made all the big men foul us and just fouled them out, right? And so part of that was they kind of figured it out. But the other parts where I was like, gosh, if you're a ref, some of that stuff, you just got to swallow your whistle. Like there at the end, when Felix and Janai go up for that rebound, and it's, in my opinion, a 50-50 ball. Nobody has possession, and Felix like taps it out to try to get it out. I feel like that is a normal play. That is fair game. I don't care if he slaps it in. They call a foul. Like you can't call that. Like You cannot ruin the pace of this game, and they absolutely ruined the pace of this game. I think they ruined. I mean, it was a good game, of course, but I think they ruined what could have been like a truly like all time.
Yeah, that truly has, and we talked about that off pod. That has truly been a thing for these past. I don't know if it's just been Tennessee games, but I mean, I don't know if it's all SEC, but it's definitely Tennessee games. Just refs having these long tennis, 7 to 10 minute tennis of continuing to blow every
And
whistle.
and then the replays
Like everything is a foul. Like it's something that we've already talked about. So I know it's probably going to continue in the tournament,
is going.
especially when it probably not round of 64, but definitely Sweet 16. I feel like once the Sweet 16 is, that'll definitely be a problem. But another thing that I did want to take away from the tournament is Tennessee's offense. It it's obviously too early to change, but even the what are the people commentators were saying, if these big men would slip these screens, because we're going to hold Chaz's jersey, because there were a lot of up ball calls that I'm not gonna lie that should have been called the whole season, but
Yeah.
teams were holding Chaz's jersey. They were like, we're gonna hold Chaz's jersey and we're gonna have the big and reach his hand out so they can't get a pass through. But K. Phillips, Akpar, Igor, they're just standing there. If they
Yeah,
cut to the
yeah.
basket and got open, that would make somebody rotate, leaving wide open threes to like Gainey or kick back out to Zakai. Like you have to slip when they're blitzing you or hedging hard. You have to slip the screens to open up the offense. Because there was a time, I saw it more in the Florida game because Florida did a very good job and they're really well coached. Florida did a very good job of not letting Chaz touch the ball. Chaz fought for 20, 25 seconds under the same screen getting set by Igor, Cade, or Felix. Well, all they had to do is they slipped the screen because the bigs are helping. Condon is helping over, or Elijah Morton has Chaz by his jersey. If they slip the screen, maybe they're going to rotate. Oh, Jordan Gaines in the corner. Meshack can hit a wide open three in the corner. Oh, you can kick back out to Zakat or Igor. Felix is the one catching the ball. He passed to Igor. Igor's wide open for a three. If they slip screens and open up the offense, things will get a lot better. Also, speaking of Jordan Gainey has really impressed me. And I know
All tournament
you
team.
were really against Gainey early on this season.
I was wrong.
Yeah, yeah, like he has really impressed me. He steps up each and every night when they need him to. Whether it's 12 points, 15 points, 9 points, going 6 for 6 from the line, like he's doing his job and he's doing what needs to be done from a veteran guard off Tennessee bench with Coach Bars.
By all tournament team, I I completely deserved. He was 100% the best player in that Florida game. The only player that really looked truly competitive that I'm like, this guy is like actually giving Florida some fits, really and truly. Except little Zakai too there towards the end, but Jordan Gainey the whole time. He was making some really tough shots. He was really feeling the mid range. He was maybe not like the most efficient, but super, super clutch from three. Super clutch from the free throw line as he always is. No, I was totally wrong about Jordan Gainey at the beginning of the year. That is me being uh an old head and not trusting a four guard kind of system. Maybe not like it's not quite the system, but your Sakai, Chaz, yeah, Jemai, and then Jordan Gainey. I always just kind of felt like maybe Gainey might ended up being the odd man out, or at least if you told me he was. I always famously said if he was the third leading scorer, like I just feel like that's not a good look. But he has been the second or third leading scorer for most of these games, and if not the first, and it's worked out. You're right. I thought about. I quoted what you said to somebody that I was talking with during the game. The most important scorer on the
Yeah.
team. That's a great line, and I think that encapsulates his role perfectly because without those, even if it's not the 20 plus points, even if it's 10 to 13 points, those are just so crucial.
Um,
And he gives it to you right when you need him, and the
how many
threes right when you
buckets?
need him, and the free throws at the end of the game. He's so consistent. Definitely the most important scorer on the team. Chaz once again. I think it was that Texas game had 17 points with 9 minutes to play in the first half, ended with 22 points. This is how he's done all season 25 points in the first half against Baylor, 0 points in the second. I mean, he is a one half scorer. That is okay. I can't tell if I mean, it's a pattern, so it has to kind of be him, but like part of me is like, I am sitting right there because they had this nice, like pretty nice media seats. I like sitting right there and I'm like seeing them grab his jersey in the second half. after and just like, oh, dang, like they're not really gonna call this. Maybe they can't call it because it's like kind of hack and shack. Like they're gonna do this every single time, so you can't like call it every single time. But then part of it is like that's just him. He gets really, really hot, for a range of time, and that's when he's gonna fit in all of his threes. He might come in there later at the end and like get you a nice clutch dagger, but for the most part, he's gonna fill up the stat sheet in a small period of time. You just got to maximize that point, and then this is very crucial for when we talk about the tournament. And then you got to manage it. Like for instance, I thought at the end of that Auburn game, he gave you what he needed whenever he needed it, and I didn't even think it was a bad thing because I thought Sakai had a really good game. I thought like I said, we said D Stone was doing it. He had some pretty big layups, like not like scoring a bunch, but had some pretty good scores. But I don't think that end of that game was managed properly. I'm sitting there. You got 8 minutes. You're in the double bonus. You're up by 12, and I'm sitting here. Or maybe it was less. I think it was less than. It was like 6 minutes or something. You're up by 12. You're in the double bonus, and I'm like, you drive to the basket every single time. You isolate Janai Broom every single time. I don't care who the scorer is. I don't care if it's Cade Phillips. I don't care if it's Igor. I don't care if you switch to Kai on him. You already scored on him. Like you find a way to isolate Jedi Broom. Had a time at three, I think 2 fouls, and then in the whole game at three. So like 8 minutes, and you only were able to pick him up one more foul. Like you gotta keep that pressure in the second, and they were for a while. They didn't score a field goal for like 2 or 3 minutes there. Like I think between like minutes 8 and 6, they didn't score a single field goal, but they scored like 6 points, going down and like getting a foul. And yeah, like I said, the game was halted, but they would go down, they get their fouls, they make their free throws, they go back. Janai would miss his free throws, they go and they get more free throws. And the second, because Auburn's a good team, say whatever you want, they're not peaking necessarily right now. They might be able to come back. I have a little bit of reservations about them, but they do have the best record, in the NCAA by far. They're a very good team and a very patient team. And the second that Tennessee gave them that opportunity when it switched on Janai, Chaz was up there, who had driven in the game earlier and looked like he had some success, like driving to the ball. He never really does that. He never really does the pull up mid rangers either that aren't like on that, like screen, like popping off on the elbow, but like just straight up like dribbling pull up mid range. He was doing that. And what does he do? He gets switched on to Janai, and instead of driving the ball, trying to draw the foul. He pulls up from Southwest Airlines and he nothing, misses everything, and they immediately turned that into a 10-0 run. That was
10-0 run
that
in
was
under a
not
minute too.
properly, but they are a patient team. They will wait till you make that mistake. I remember thinking, I was looking at that, I was like, there's so much time left. Now, in theory, if you manage the game right, you're in the double bonus already. You're up by double digits. If you make if you can make this a free throw shootout, and as long as you make your free throws, which that ended up being the game, but minutes later, they did end up being able to do that, but after they had already kind of almost gave it away. And that was just like, like sometimes the team, and that's why the team has lost more one possession games this year than it's won. That's why they lost over in Auburn. Not just because it was the road game, but because you get the block and then you don't get the rebound, and then you draw up some corner fadeaway three for Zakai, and then you make the fans and the media sit there scratching their hands like, I don't really get it. I trust you, Rick Barnes, but I don't really get it. Like I don't really get what that's for. The same with the Chaz layup going into the go after the end of the Vandy game, when it like it clearly looked like that was not your best shot, but for some reason it's like, did we draw this up to give Chaz his moment in Nashville? Because it's kind of backfired. um that's the only reservation I have. I think the team competes with everybody, and they put themselves in that defense is going to keep them competitive in every single game. To your point, the offense, I had no reservations almost at all about the offense. They would go on there, other than like some fouls, but they would go on their tangents of like not scoring for 3, 4+ minutes on end. But like if you watch Tennessee basketball since Rick Barnes been here, they're gonna do that. It's just how they manage the rest of the time that they are scoring. Similar to Chats, but like for the whole game, like they're gonna be minutes where the Vols just don't score for 3 minutes. But what are you doing in the minutes that you are scoring? Are you maximizing that? Are you getting your stops and you're building a lead, or are you just going back and forth, right? Um, so they've proven that they can be in every single game, and I think now they have to prove that they are capable enough in, dare I say, experienced enough, which you can argue they're not, and I fear that they're not, but experienced enough that when they have been competitive, that at the end of those games, they can find themselves on the winning side and not in the losing locker room.
That's what I think that leads. That's a great segue into my question for you. So, as a Tennessee student, Tennessee fan, as a basketball fan, period, as a college basketball fanatic, What are you expecting from the Volunteers in March?
Um, I will give it away in the sense because I really, really did like what I saw um in the SEC tournament. I really think, and I don't mean to write it off like it's nothing. I really just do think that Florida is just so hot right now and so dominant that nobody was going to beat them in that last game.
So good.
Um, then in Gabriel Jackson's official bracket, I do have them beating Houston and going to the Final Four.
Let's
Um,
get it.
which
Let's
is crazy. I will say two things about that. One, I think
get
Texas
it.
got a really, really favorable draw. I think that Midwest is probably the best draw that they could have gotten. Now it sucks because they're going to play on Thursday and Saturday, and they just played on Sunday. That's another issues with the conference tournaments. Some kind of something has to be restructured because they're about to play. I think that would be they played Saturday, they played Sunday, they'll play Thursday, they'll play Saturday. So 4 games in a week. It's a lot. That would really be honestly the biggest hurdle that I would have with this team making it to the Final Four is that they are, and especially a team that plays as physical as they do and as much hustle plays as they have. Like I'm sitting here thinking like, all right, that's really tough. I would say that's a bigger concern for me more than the fouls, but I think they have a really good favorable matchup. They're going to play Wofford. They might meet up with UCLA.
Kentucky scares me though.
You do get another matchup against Kentucky, but do you beat Kentucky on a neutral court? Because I will, again, while I was making that, and I'm doing all my research because I'm a fanatic. Tennessee is undefeated this year on neutral courts. Not only are they undefeated, they're kind of dominant on neutral courts. And I asked them before, not to get a little excited, but I asked Jemai, sorry, not Janai, Jemai Mashak before the game, and I asked Igor too because they're sitting right next to each other in the locker room after that Texas game. I said, "What it's going to be?" I was like, "What's your opinion of facing Auburn getting that rematch on a neutral court?" And they iterated the same thing. They were like, "Bro, not being in there." Arena, their fans, just are these Neville is really loud and their fans would travel well. It's no excuse, but being at a neutral court, they do think all things being equal, they both were very confident that they come away from that game. And what they do, they come away and they win that game. And so I would argue, Tennessee maybe facing Kentucky on a neutral court. Obviously, they lost at home, which is your only other thing about it. But I do think maybe not being so high or so low for this team might actually work out in their favor. Also, kind of have it baked in that I think Kentucky might choke. I won't give away my whole bracket, but Kentucky is kind of a playoff choker if you because I'm a very history analytical guy. I go through all the trends and we'll see if Kentucky makes it that far.
For sure, under Cal for sure.
But they close by saying that they have all the makings of a Final Four team.
Four. Yeah, he says Final Four. Jeremiah says Elite Eight.
Okay.
I think they're going to take care of business against Wofford, beat UCLA.
Yeah.
What does scare me is that Sweet 16 matchup. That's just thinking that Kentucky will make it there. Just because getting beat twice by a team and you let them shoot 50% from three both games is just something that scares me a
Give them
lot
fits.
with a team like Tennessee that's been a top three Ken Palm defensive ranked team in the nation the whole season. Um, it just feels like Kentucky has Tennessee's number in that category. But I do think, like you said, going into the tournament, getting these big wins against Auburn and stuff like that will definitely give Tennessee confidence and understanding this is a do or die situation. Like we can't mess around. We have to play 40 minutes, not 35, not 36, not 29. We have to play 40 great minutes to make sure we move on to the next round. So I do believe that will be a great test, but Tennessee definitely could come out on top. Now, going back to what you said about the Auburn matchup in the Elite Eight, I mean the not Auburn and Houston matchup, I just believe that team is just better coached, honestly, and they have more offensive weapons. They have four guys that can give you 20 points. Tennessee does not have. They have four guys that can give you 20 points, and they have a top three defense just like Tennessee. And I feel like the only teams that can beat Tennessee are teams with the same caliber type, like Florida. Florida has great defense, and they also can put up a lot of points. That's what scares me about Houston. I do think that Tennessee will fall once again to a 1 seed like they did last year against Purdue in the early eight.
I can see that. I could see similar to Kentucky. They don't necessarily play the same, really not at all. But I think that teams that are really deep, not necessarily in that they just have so many good players, but just have a lot of players, have all season long give Tennessee fits.
Yeah.
Case in point, Kentucky sweeping
Yeah.
Tennessee, the only team to sweep them. Ole Miss recently being a team that doesn't have like 3 or 4 guys score 20, but have like 6 guys that score 10, and that giving Tennessee some fits. And I can definitely see running into Houston kind of offsetting the defense because you're both top three defense, right? And so kind of offsetting that defense, but then their offense kind of having more guys that can shift. I say my final four. I wouldn't say my final four is a prediction more than other than for my bracket because I felt like it. Um, I wouldn't say more so it's like a personal prediction. Rather, if you just ask me, does the team have the makings of a final four, which I do think there are about 6 teams in my opinion. Like unlikelihood because every year happens. There's gonna be like one wild card in there that doesn't. I mean, Auburn lost to Yale. They lost to Nerds last year in the first round after winning the SEC championship. Like this team is not safe in my opinion for just getting to the Final Four. People were just kind of assuming Duke is just gonna be in the Final Four, like and just like kind of only starting their brackets from Duke at the Final Four or even Elite Eight on. I think are also kind of really overestimating Cooper Flag's health. Like, who knows? Like, we don't even really know what that
True.
situation is like. So all that stuff. Although I do have Tennessee losing to Duke because I'm just gonna assume Cooper Flag's playing, and I don't think that anybody on the Tennessee roster can guard him. I just don't think anybody.
Because
I don't even picture in my head who
yeah,
guards Cooper
Tennessee,
Flag.
Tennessee is they play Duke for sure.
Yeah, I just sitting here. I'm like, I can't picture who. Do you put Igor on him? Definitely not. Just like I was like, Felix fouls out. Jemai would be your best bet, but he's a little undersized, a little shorter. He might shoot over him, but like, whatever. I think they would. I think they would fall to Duke, but I could see a world where Tennessee and Houston kind of even each other out on both fronts because I could also see a world where Chaz has 20, Zakai has 20, Jordan Gainey has 15, and then Igor knocked down 3 threes and a free throw for 10. Um, so I could see a world where that game just kind of comes down to like, again, who can manage the last minute or two on that clock. Um, so yeah, it's more of like I believe Tennessee has all the pieces to be a Final Four team. Whether or not they will or not, we will see. I think we'll get a much better picture after the Wofford game, which I'd love to come back and talk to you about now that we kind of have a feeling of how the boys are looking after the tournament. You know,
Well, I guess today is Tuesday. Well, is today Tuesday? Yeah, today's Tuesday. They play Thursday. I'm sure. Sure they play like Thursday.
Thursday at 6 Central, so my time.
Yeah. So I
7.
feel like we could definitely see you then. Hopefully, we see not a dog fight. Don't that's gonna really bother me. They play a 15, 19, and 16 team and barely beat them by like 8. I think Tennessee is like 18.5 point favorites according to
They're
ESPN. So
up. If they're covering at any point in the game, I don't want to see the starters in.
yeah, like sit them, like let Brandon play. Let Bishop play. Like we have to play rest them, especially these 4 games in like
Exactly. If you
like that's a lot
can,
of
if you can treat Wofford like a bye, do.
yes.
You know, how about I forgot to mention, look this up. Tennessee 8-0 against Wofford. Their last win, they won by 20 in Knoxville, 2023. So it's not a team that they haven't. I mean, they put them on the schedule before. It's a program that Rick Barnes is familiar with. So if you can treat this game like a bye and you can go in there and get up 20 real quick, Chaz Lanier scores 18 in the first half, and then you just pull everybody and then tell D Stone like, hey D Stone, you want to play 35 minutes tonight? Go ahead. Like have your day, right? But mainly Zakai and Jemai Mashak, I think for me, because of what they do defensively, I think you really, really need to keep those guys managed at all times. The first 2 rounds, the best you possibly can, if you think that we can really, or Tennessee can really go to make a Final Four push, which is never done in program history. And I think that's what Rick Barnes really, really wants to try to do.
Yeah. But guess it's up to the boys and see how many podcasts we got left for this season.
I guess we'll see.
But again, I'm Jeremiah,
I'm Gabe.
and we appreciate you all for listening. More to come, depending on how Tennessee plays. Peace.
The 3 month